Okay, should I begin?
Sure
Yes.
thing. Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. So today, my name's Daniel Denhart Lillard, and I'm going to talk about Diana, which was made by Federal Glass in Columbus, Ohio. And it's a pattern that I've collected for probably about 20 years. uh, due to I had a friend from college, a very close friend, whose name is Diana, and someone had given her a little glass yellow bowl with the Diana pattern. I became kind of fascinated with that, and so I started collecting it in many different colors. And then I decided about 2 or 3 years ago, I guess, to get really serious about it and collect all of the pieces in one color. And so I concentrated on pink since that's the hardest color to find. And now I've amassed a collection, and I wrote an article about it for the National Depression Glass Association for the newsletter in, I think it was November or December. And so this is what this presentation is based on. So we're going to talk about the Federal Glass Company and where the name came from for the pattern. I'm going to show you all of the pattern pieces that I could find. We're going to talk about all of the swirl patterns. There were many swirl patterns in depression glass. Some of them have swirl patterns is one part of it, but the other one is we're going to talk about some other patterns named Diana and Diane, which is, of course, a very popular name. And we're going to show you some advertisements. And so let's get started. All right, this is a, grouping of some of my pieces on my dining room table. You can see that it's a pretty mid-sized pattern compared to most of the depression glass patterns. You can quite easily have a dinner with the Diana pattern, or it's also very good for a dessert party. Like if you wanted to serve ice cream and cake with coffee, that would be a good way to use this pattern. This is from a Sears advertisement in spring and summer 1940. And to the right, I've showed you pretty much a table sitting in Diana. Says swirl design glass dinnerware sets an attractive, informal table, just the thing for luncheons or afternoon entertaining. And you can see in the picture that some of the pieces, it has the dinner plate, it has a salad um, bowl. It has a cream soup, has a sherbet, has a coaster and a tumbler, has a demi-tasse with a saucer and then a cup and saucer. So Diana was made by the Federal Glass Company, like I said, in Columbus, Ohio. It's a mid-sized pattern produced from 1937 to 1941, which makes it kind of at the end of the Depression glass period. But it's still solidly considered depression glass period, or I'm sorry, pattern. And in the books by Jean and Kathy Florence, they always listed it in their depression glass books and not in like the 50s books or. And it's also a regular depression glass. I don't want to say cheaper glass, but it's not an elegant glass pattern like a Heisey or something like that. Had 20 pattern pieces and 21 molds. So it's a pretty good pattern to collect. It's the 21, I think the extra mold maybe was for the candy jar and the cover. How you recognize Diana. Now, this is what confuses a lot of people. The swirls are beveled and they're slightly raised. They go in a clockwise fashion around the body of the piece. And most distinctly in Diana, most of the pieces have the swirled patterns in the center. Many of the other swirl patterns do not, and that's one way you can determine it. Um, when I was thinking about recognizing Diana, a lot because I'm always looking at the different Etsy and eBay listings for Diana, and a lot of us who are used to collecting glass, it's not so hard for us to recognize a true depression glass pattern. I mean, maybe we know the pattern or even the maker, but moreover, we know the heft of it and the feel of it and the color of it. But when I became very interested in completing my collection, I realized that the cream soups were extremely hard to find. I enlisted my spouse to kind of help me look around the antique malls for it. And so that was a real eye-opening experience that to someone who's not really an aficionado of depression glass, it's kind of hard to locate. Now, he quickly became very good at it, but there's a lot out there that people think is Diana and it's not. Diana came in three main colors. We have the crystal, also called the clear. We have rose glow, which is also called pink. We have golden glow, which is called yellow or amber. And then at the time that Florence wrote his last book, I mean, I kind of consider him to be the closest we have to an expert uh, overall with depression glass. Of course, he's deceased now, but he had only recognized one piece in green as the Diana pattern, and that's called springtime green, and that was the ashtray. And I'll go into that a little bit more later. But one of the interesting things about collecting Diana or collecting depression glass is that we're constantly updating information. We're constantly finding new pieces. And as I really delve into this, I think there's a few more pieces in green that probably are a crossover. So the Federal Glass Company. Federal Glass Company was, I'm sorry, just outside of Columbus and was started in 1900. It was started, interestingly enough, by a guy who had worked at Indiana Glass. And then he wanted to do his own thing and he started Federal Glass Company. And at its peak, like most of the glass companies, it had a very big population of the local people who were working in the factories. It covered 57 acres and had more than 1,900 employees. So it was a huge employer for the region. And it was known locally as the Federal. And it basically produced machine-made glassware, barware, other glass for home use using mold etched, chipped mold, and paste mold processes. Diana falls under the mold etched, I guess, is what you'd say. It had an in-house decorating department and it produced their own shipping boxes. Uh, it did pretty well through the war years, through World War II, but then it began, like all the glass companies, to have a lot of competition from other countries, and soon their boxing part of the company, the cartons and stuff, that kind of overcame the glass section of it. And so at the very end, they were able to sell off the carton portion uh, concern of it, and that continued for a little while after the glass company went down. Diana does not bear the Shield F, which is shown over here It's called Shield F, or F in a shield, and that was the mark that Federal Glass used to mark their glass. I've read a lot about when this mark began. Marge Iwan wrote this kind of comprehensive book on the Federal Glass Company itself. It's called, I think it's called F in a Shield, the Federal Glass Company. And I read the whole book, and she talks about this being the F in the Shield mark being, uh, what does she say here? She says it was trademarked on December 6, 1944, and therefore Diana did not bear the mark. Some sources now are reporting that they're finding it as early as 1924. I don't know if they were, you know, trying it out or whatever. But recently, and we'll go over this in a minute, but I found a piece of Diana that has the federal glass mark. So I don't know if that was made later, whether the mark started earlier, but that's another, interesting thing that we find out as we discover more about depression glass. You're finding all these inconsistencies, I guess you'd call them. The Historical Museum in Columbus holds the records, or at least some of the records of the Federal Glass Company. And if I ever get to stay in Indiana during my yearly trips long enough, I'd like to drive up there and take a look at them, because that might answer some of the questions. The glass division shut down operations at 1 p.m. on January 31st, 1979. Like many of the other glass companies, it just couldn't no longer compete or, be prosperous. And many of the molds went to Indiana Glass in Dunkirk, Indiana. And I can't just, I mean, I know a lot of the Indiana patterns, but I can't think of anything right offhand. Maybe Dean would know more about this because he collects Indiana, but um, I can't think of anything they reused or reissued like that. But they ended up with a lot of the federal molds. Okay, for some reason it's not wanting me to do this. There we go. So, a daughter named Diana. So, in 1938, Federal hired a German born guy, Günther Hermann Kusi, and he was their premium specialist because, during that time, during the Depression class, they had like dish giveaways. Supermarkets would have dish nights, and they would, they give them away, and dishwashing powders and at gas stations, all the kinds, So he was the guy who headed up all that marketing. And he was made a director in 1951 because he developed a contract with General Mills for giveaways in boxes of the Federal glass. And I mean, many of you may be familiar with Hazel Marie Weatherman. She was an early Depression glass collector, and wrote some books that she self-published. And she met with Günther Kusi, and he told her that he had named the pattern after his daughter Diane. And at that time, she would have been about 4 or 5. And here's a picture of Diane. And she's now deceased, but she lived from 1933 to 2003. Pattern pieces. Uh, Here are a few of my pattern pieces. Actually, my in-laws gave us this crystal bowl. Crystal is harder to find in all of the pieces. It's probably rarer than the color pieces, as in many of the Depression glass patterns, but hardly anybody wants to collect crystal. I think it really would look very nice if you had all the crystal Diana on a table. And then here's one of the cream soups in yellow. And then here are some clear pieces in the cream and sugar and with the fired on handles. When I first began to collect seriously, the Diana, it was I thought, oh, I'll find those cream soups, I'll find the scallop bowl. Turns out those are scarce as hen's teeth. Someone told me in one of my groups that many of the pink Diana pieces are had just been in collections for so many years that it's pretty hard to find that, especially those cream soups. I still need one of them. So Diana had several plates. It doesn't have a luncheon plate, but it has the bread and butter plate in 6 inches, and that's the one that you'll see most. Many people confuse it with the saucer, but it has a flat middle, which again has the swirl pattern in the middle. And the actual cup saucer has an indentation for the cup. Has a dinner plate, kind of a mid-sized dinner plate, just under 10 inches, about 9.5 inches. Then it has a sandwich or a cake plate. And I use this plate here a lot. We have a lot of buffet parties where you serve in buffet style, and this makes a great plate for that. And it's 11 and a half to 11 and 3/4. The cup saucer, like I say, it's the same size as the bread plate, but it is typically used for the cup or as an underplate for the cream soup. And it has a middle indentation. Now, the demi-tasse saucer, uh, it's 4 inches and it's used for the demi-tasse cups. And as you'll see in a minute, there is a whole separate set featuring 6 sets of demi-tasse cups and saucers, and it was marketed as a child's set or a junior set. The platter, another great serving piece is just about 12 inches. And again, that's great to use for parties and just outside the pattern on its own. Bowls, you'll most commonly, if you're on eBay or at an antique mall, you'll see the cereal bowl over and over, and it's 5 inches. Um, I think I referred to it earlier as some other kind of bowl, but it is really the cereal bowl. And the cream soup, the notorious cream soup, hard to find, 5.5 inches. Uh, this piece is the most susceptible to chipping, I think. Diana's not a pattern that really, the swirls don't stand up so much that it's really prone to chipping. But these little handles on that cream soup, they're very sharp and not finely made, and they are easy to chip. This salad or vegetable bowl is 9 inches, which is pretty big. Um, I'm not sure what kind of vegetable you'd be serving at a dinner that you'd need a 9 inch bowl, but I guess, maybe if you were serving a family, that might come in handy. But I have made a lot of salads in this bowl. Also, these are two kind of separate serving bowls. The console fruit, which can sit on the cake plate as an underplate and be sort of a console set, although there are no candlesticks in Diana. But I use this a lot for holidays. I'll fill it with like little holiday themed things, or sometimes at Easter I'll put some Easter grass in it and some eggs, and it's a kind of a nice piece. It's big, so it's so big. In fact, it doesn't fit in my china cabinet, so it's always usually on top of it. The scalloped edge bowl is also an extremely difficult piece to find unless you want it in crystal. I have yet to see it in any book or in any in person or in any listing or anything in yellow or pink, although it is listed in yellow and pink in the Depression Glass books by Jean and Kathy Florence. So I'm trusting it's out there, and I'm hoping I'll run across one soon because it's again the only other piece other than the one cream soup that I need to find to finish my collection. Tumblers, the tumblers used to be the most expensive. I guess they still kind of are tumblers and salt and pepper shakers, but they've come down in quite price quite a bit. They used to be like $75 a piece, but the tumblers have the Diana swirl pattern on the bottom, and then you'll find that on the bottom of the glass when you're looking at the side, but on the actual bottom of the glass, there is no swirl design. They're 9 ounces. And so that's it's not huge, but it'd be nice for like a water glass in a dinner setting, I think. Cups are 3 inches, and so they're a pretty medium-sized cup. They have the design on the bottom. The Demitas does not have the design on bottom, and it's very small at 1 7/8 inches. The thing about the Demitas, I do drink espresso once in the morning, but I think I'd kind of be afraid to put it in this kind of glass. I don't know if it would chip it or not, or break it. The shakers with the lid are some of the additional pieces. There's no swirl pattern on the bottom. Of course, like all depression glass salt and pepper shakers, you're going to find them with dented lids. I've yet to really find a pristine lid. The creamer is an open oval creamer, and it's pretty big. It's 2 1/4 inches, which when you think about that, that's pretty big for a creamer. Kind of what we would think of as a hotel creamer if you're collecting Heisey or something like that. The sugar is an open oval. There's no lid to it, and it's also pretty big, almost about 3 inches. The swirl patterns are on the bottom of both the creamer and the sugar. Other additional pieces are the sherbet, and sometimes people call this the champagne, but that's, I think, pretty much incorrect. I can't imagine you would drink champagne out of that. The coaster is swirl, and it has a straight side, and the side, the only ones I've ever seen are this one like mine here that I'm showing you. It has no what they call risers, but they say that it does come with swirled risers, which is the side part, uh, and you can find it in straight. The swirls going up straight. I've never seen this, but I have read that they are available somewhere. The candy jar with the lid is a great little piece, and it's usually not very expensive. I don't know why. Again, the swirl pattern is on the bottom, and the lid, like every other lid for glassware, is, susceptible to chips. So if you buy that, ask lots of questions if you're buying it online. Now, the cake plate comes with a handle. It's a detachable handle that just clips on, and it comes in a plated metal, gold toned or silver toned. Uh, the one I bought is shown here, and it even came with a gold toned server, but I think that can't possibly be that came with it. I think it probably is just a marriage of some type. And I have my birthday cake on this plate this year. So it does work well, and it's kind of handy to carry around like that. I think if I have a buffet party the next time, I'm probably going to put little sandwiches on this and use that handle because I think it looks nice. The ashtray is very, very hard to find. It seems like it's more a general ashtray for the federal period if I was asked to think about that a little bit. But it is, again, the one piece in Springtime Green, which I couldn't find a picture of, that is an official part of the Diana pattern, according to a lot of sources. Now, here's a coordinating piece that I think is very interesting. This is not part of the Diana pattern, although it looks exactly like it. And it is a coaster with a spoon rest. And a lot of people will call this an ashtray because they think that your cigar or your cigarette sits on there, which I guess it would. I think it's ingenious because, instead of, if you don't know what to do with your spoon or whatever, I think it's great to have this little, almost like a knife rest or something. And if you'll look up here, I'll try to kind of zoom in on this. Maybe I don't know if I can, but anyway, right here it has the patent number, and this is attributed to Macbeth Evans Glass Company, and you'll find it in pink, and I've seen it in green, I've seen it in clear. Don't think I've ever seen it in amber or yellow. It was a pattern the patent was filed in 1927 and issued in 1928 by this inventor, Grant Calvin Elliott. And I use it. I went ahead and collected several of them in the pink, and I use it with my table setting. I think it kind of makes an interesting piece, even though technically, there is an actual coaster that goes along with Diana. Now here's a piece, the Springtime Green Sherbet, and I've also now found it in coasters. See what I mean about these coasters? I mean, they look exactly like Diana. I'm thinking it's just a piece of glass made in this pattern using the same molds by Federal Glass, and the green somehow didn't get put into the Diana pattern, but I mean, it looks exactly like it to me. But I found this blurb from Jim Retzloff from chataboutdepressionglass.com, and he very easily explains why this green sherbet is not part of the Diana pattern. But if you go to any eBay listing, if you'll go to antique stores, you will see this and you'll see it listed as Diana. And he says the sherbet on the left is the Federal Glass spiral pattern. Although it has the thinner stem, the Federal sherbet is very similar to the Hocking spiral piece on the right. The Federal spiral sherbet was reissued in other colors to be used as part of their Diana pattern. So again, using the same molds, why it's not called Diana and the rest of them are, I guess, the only reason I can think of is just because they didn't issue the other, at least we don't know about any of the regular pieces in the Springtime Green. But that's a pretty confusing piece. Now here's the child's or junior set. And I mean, I live in the Bay Area, so I don't have a big, huge house. But if I had a big, huge house, or when we do again, I'll probably get a Diana Junior set just to have one. They come in three different types of uh, metal racks: the oval one, the tri shape, which looks like the cake plate handle, and the oval. And they are in black, gold toned, or silver toned. And I'm really curious. I don't know that I've ever seen one in person, but from all indications, the Demitas and saucer are the same size as the Demitas and the saucer and the Diana pattern, but I'd really like to verify that, but I just never see them. The unusual child set with Federal's shield mark. Here is the one I was talking about. This just happened to me probably 2 days ago. I was trying to find a better picture of a child's junior set, and I'll be darned if I didn't find one with the Federal shield mark, which was confusing, but now I'm really intrigued. Diana came in with colored bands. Like I said before at the beginning of the presentation, they had their own decorating department. So you can see single, double, or triple bands in Diana. You can see them in blue, red, orange, gold, green, platinum, or yellow. And the bands can be on the inside or the outside of the piece, and they can vary in width. I think a good example of this is this green banded glass shown here. Um, I think they're very interesting and kind of striking, particularly when they're in every color is banded. So you can find bands on yellow and pink and the clear, but I think on the clear they're very beautiful. And for as old as they are, they're in surprisingly great shape. I hardly ever see them chipped or flaked, which is very unusual, I think, because most other patterns seems like that kind of stuff chips off pretty easily. They also applied color handles in red, orange, green, blue, or yellow. The top one is a set that I own. And the bottom one is one I got off eBay, and it's also satinized. The blue ones are especially beautiful. I think they're really, really nice. You can find every color of Diana satinized, and that's just some finish that they did, the satin finish, and sometimes they'll have the color handles. They also did it in a flashed glass, and you can see it here in a cranberry flash and in a ruby flash. And it looks like they left the handles clear, which is interesting. And also, every time I've seen it, well, I guess this one, the cranberry flash, looks like it's chipped a little bit, but typically that flash chips off pretty good. The world of swirl, the other swirl patterns and other patterns with similar names. So the closest and most easily confused with Diana is this spiral by Anchor Hawking, and it's earlier than Diana from 1928 to 1930. Diana, of course, is 37 to 41. The spirals turn clockwise like Diana, but they have plane centers in all of them. Uh, if you look at this, I think this is an actual coffee cup, but you couldn't tell that from the Demitas. There's absolutely no difference because the Demitas in Diana doesn't have the swirl center. You could also confuse this sometimes with the twisted optic uh, from Imperial Glass. It has counterclockwise swirls and polished bottoms on flat pieces and a plain plate center. The Spiral Flutes by Duncan and Miller, the swirls are clear at the rim with a very large area in the middle. To me, I would never confuse this with Diana, but like I say, if you're starting out, it's kind of easy to confuse. One of the most popular things you're seeing or at least I'm seeing here in the West Coast in antique malls, is this Rosaline Pink by Crystal Dark Durand. And it's a late pattern. It's 68 to 1980s. It's thinner. It's not as heavy. Again, if you know depression glass, you're not going to think this is depression glass once you pick it up. Um, My favorite method is to flick it with my fingernail, and you can tell right away it's very thin glass. But a lot of people are listing this as Diana. Fire King Swirl also uh, is a swirl pattern, and it is on the ends or the perimeter. The swirl is instead of in the middle. Twist by Heisey, which I love. I'm also a Heisey collector, and I think this is my next pattern I'm going to collect, but I'm going to collect it in green. But it's from the late 1920s, late 1930s, and the spirals are wider. Of course, if you've ever held a piece of Heisey glass, it is much sturdier and much better made than almost, a lot of the regular depression glass patterns, and it's heavier. And it also has ground bottoms. Queen Mary, most people wouldn't think about this being confused, but I could see where you get a little confused about it. But Queen Mary has vertical ribs that are straight and not slanted, particularly on the bowls, they go straight up. Other patterns for similar names. You have Tiffin Franciscan's Apollo Diana and Athens Diana, and these are etches. I don't know if that's the name of the pattern or the etch. I have a feeling it's the etch. And Diane by Tiffin Franciscan, that's probably also the cutting. Diana, line 601 by Fostoria, which is an old piece. It's an early American pressed glass piece, 1898 to 1913. Cambridge has Diana, Cambridge 1066, which is a depression glass pattern, very beautiful. They have 3122, which they made for a long time from the 30s to the 50s, which is elegant depression glass, and I think very beautiful. The 3106, and then they have the Diana etch by Heisey, which actually has the goddess Diana with her bow. And that's a very beautiful, sort of Art Deco looking piece. Advertisements. This is the only advertisement piece that I can find for Diana, and it's from Christmas 1938 from the Mound Ridge Cooperative Creamery Company, and advertising their gold leaf butter in gold letters. And this is courtesy of the Museum of Glass in West Virginia. They are fantastic. They have a huge archive and were kind enough to let me use some of their pictures in my article I wrote. Here is a piece or an advertisement showing their entire line from 1938. Here on the left, you can see Diana on the fourth row down, well, on the fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh rows down, I guess, all the bottom rows. And it shows their line in crystal. And this was to advertise to salespeople. The one on the left shows a grouping of Diana in the dining room, says glassware is always acceptable. Our new Diana line in either crystal, rose glow, or golden glow is especially attractive to the housewife. Here are some ads I pulled from old newspapers and from Sears catalogs. There are quite if you're interested in researching depression glass a little further, there are people on the internet that have digitized entire 1920s, 30s, 40s Sears catalogs, and they're a great source to kind of find this stuff. Um, you can see that sometimes they'll call the colors different colors, like here they're calling it topaz. Uh, Sometimes you'll see that the measurements are different, but it's always interesting to take a look at these. So for the bibliography, I just wanted to point out a few things. Kathy Eichholt has written also an article on Diana, and it's at National Depression Class Association.net under the articles. And that it's definitely worth a read. It's very interesting. Jean and Kathy Florence, I wanted to do a shout out to them. I'm I really miss getting my new Depression Glass books from the Florences. Marge Iwan, the Shield F Federal Glass Company, 1900 to 79, an extensive look at the company. And if you're interested in that company, it's interesting to read. Here's the museum I was talking about. They gave me a few of the pictures, the Museum of American Glass in West Virginia. They have just a huge archive of not only articles about glass, but a lot of pictures, and it's very good if you're researching glass. And then Hazel Marie Weatherman, The Colored Glass of the Depression Era, volumes one and two. They're old. They're 1970 to 1974, but they're really interesting because, like I say, she even went to the Federal Glass Company and talked to the guy who, invented the patterns. So and then my photos, I'm an archivist by nature, so I like to, properly tell who the photos are. So if you want to look into any of the photos I used, you might take a look at this slide here. So if you have any questions, let me know, or if you think of something after our meeting today, give me a shout and I'll be able to answer what I can. But I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my presentation, and thanks for allowing me to talk about Diana.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Diana's a pattern that I see, but I don't really know that. I didn't know that much about it, so it was nice to see that. Um, and I didn't know whether you wanted me to cut in. You mentioned a couple of times some things about uh, federal
Yeah.
patterns maybe made by Indiana. At the time, I was trying
Yeah.
to help somebody who I thought she was in. Oh, Sherry, there I see Sherry got in. I was trying to help Sherry get in while you were there. So I'm glad that she was able to make that happen. Um, but yes, I know that Indiana, well, Lancaster Colony bought Federal and sent the molds to its subsidiary, Indiana Glass, there in Dunkirk. And I'm not sure how many. I mean, they say they sent molds, but I don't know what they sent. I know there are a couple. There's one pattern called, oh, is it Heritage? I think that Indiana remade. Of
Hmm.
course, they did Madrid, but they were nice enough to rename it and in most instances make it in colors that were easy to distinguish. I think the only one that's confusing is the pink. So, that's kind of what I know. I'm sure there were some other pieces that they probably did, you know. Uh, but it is interesting that you talked about crystal being the rare color. Yes, I mostly collect Indiana, but my first collection that I still have is Federal's Madrid pattern. So
Oh,
even in Madrid, and I think it's this way in Patrician, they did make part of the pattern in crystal, but they didn't make a lot of it. So I think there's only a handful of pieces that were made in crystal. I've only found, less than 10. Um, but I know there were over 30 pieces made in the golden glow, the amber yellow color that they did. Um, I did find it interesting. I went out Thursday and did a little shopping up and down Winfield Dunn Parkway in Sevierville, and uh, saw a couple of the child sets with the metal rack, and I thought of you. So, but I didn't realize you didn't have one. So,
yeah. And it's just a matter of room. If I had the room, I would have one.
Um,
Regarding the molds with Indiana Glass, my cousin was the union rep for decades at Indiana Glass, and he worked there his whole life. I'm going to ask him what he if he knows where those molds are and what happened to them. And I mean, it's Ardagh now. I don't know what that is or what they make even anymore, but I'm going to ask him if he knows anything about those.
well, and I know the museum there in Dunkirk got a lot of the paperwork when they tore the factory down, and they were also allowed to go in and go through the morgue and take pieces. So I haven't been back in several years to the museum in Dunkirk, so I don't know
Huh.
exactly what they have. Um, but yeah, it's quite interesting. I think that whether we like to admit it or not, they kind of traded things around, and it was almost there was almost an incestuous relationship between lots of those glass factories. They were trading this and that and copying each other and everything, and it
And
was
employees, I've heard employees, they were often moving back and forth, and yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So um and I need to give a shout out. You mentioned Jim Rusloff. And Jim
Yeah.
was one of those people that Monique probably remembers from the Chat About board, because he was very involved with that. And I think through that, he got in touch with Barbara Mozzie, and he helped her with, I know for sure the last version of her books, maybe the last couple. And so if you go and look in there, there are quite a number of spiral patterns. He loved spiral patterns. He studied all I mean, I'm amazed at how many. There were a lot more that even you didn't mention. That it's like, so yeah, and I was fortunate enough to meet Jim a couple of times. He was a native of Michigan, but he spent his winters in Texas after he retired, and he would come to the February Glass Show, which was held in Houston, outside of Houston. Um, so I got to meet him there. Nice man. Sadly, he's passed away. I don't know what has happened done with all of his research and his glass and everything. I would hope that somehow that's been able to be preserved in some form or fashion because he knew his spirals. It was pretty amazing to listen to him talk and explain, and he knew what he was talking about. So, but like I said, check out. I know for sure Mozzie's last edition, maybe the one right before that. And again, I can't remember how many editions she had. But yeah, there's a lot of spiral information in there that Jim provided to her. So. Um, like I said, I'm very, very good, interesting talk. I liked hearing about it. So, um, anybody else have anything else they want to ask Daniel, talk about?
I have some pieces if we get there, but yeah, if there are questions
Okay.
first. Any questions for Daniel? Okay, I can jump in. I'll jump in with my. I wanted to. So I have. Diana is one of those patterns that I don't collect, but I like individual pieces. I've heard from the books that these are very uncommon. The salt and peppers in the gold color, like the golden glow, I think it's
Mhm.
called. But at least in my part of Canada, they are very common. I like out of like I want to say I've seen 6 or 8 of these around, always reasonably priced. Um, anyway, I bought some because I think this is the only gold in Diana that I have. This is the piece that I think I was alluding to last time. So, what the last meeting when we were talking about this presentation coming up. So this is a candy dish bottom, but it's in a
Wow.
yeah. So I found this in the most unusual spot. So it was in the clearance section of an antique mall with a giant pile of clear glass. Yeah, and most of the glass was all floral glass, like sort of random, very common vases and things. So I was barely even looking at it, but I kind of quickly glanced and I'm like, oh, what's that gold thing? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, that really looks like the Diana pattern. And so I like picked it up and I studied it, and I almost didn't get it because I didn't know what the heck it was. But I paid $1.50 for it. Yeah. And yeah, I've never been able to find another example anywhere. I've looked everywhere online, like, and I don't think it ever had a cover because I don't think it would fit properly over with the handle. But yeah, it sits on my dining room table with candy in it quite often.
I love that, and it looks like the cake handle. It has like that little piece up
Yeah,
there, and like the one child set I showed. Wow.
Okay, so do you know, did they do that at Federal or was that done at a different factory?
My guess is it probably was done at a different factory because I know when the 19th edition of the Florence books has I didn't know what pattern it was, but it was a ruby red uh, pattern, and it had the same cake handle. So I think that it was just an adjunct piece that, probably was used on a lot of different ones.
I was also going to say that the F in a shield mark, all of the Demi-Tasse cups that I ever see here, any color, they always have that. I've never seen a Demi-Tasse cup that I can think of that didn't have the F shield in both the cup and the like the saucer part of the Demi-Tasse. The other thing I was going to say about the F shield is I have a piece. This is a Federal piece. I think it's thumbprint, and it has the F shield. And this is like a late 20s to 1930 pattern. So yeah, I guess adding to your information about the dates of the Federal shield. Anyone else with glass to share or ideas to share or anything?
Just to follow on your comment about what you found in Canada, in my corner of Quebec, what I mostly saw in the Diana pattern was the demi-tasse and saucers. And I saw the rack for the child set. So probably they were imported here as the child set. And I also saw lots of the shaker, but not much of the other pieces of Diana.
So, anybody else have anything else? We can always move on to show and tell if everybody would like that. If there are no more questions, anybody have any show and tell? Okay, Phyllis, I know the glass show was last weekend in Rosenberg. So, what did you find?
There we go. Okay, I didn't find a lot. Unfortunately, they seem to be doing an awful lot of 60s and 70s type of glass now. And I'm an open salt collector. But what I found, you can see this, is the small, it's a Fostoria sleigh. And salt collectors collect this as a salt. But Fostoria, from my research, said they just called this giftware. And so I do have, okay, so this salt collectors say this is a master, but it's just, like I said, it's giftware, just two different sizes. And the only reason I bought this one was because of it being melt glass. I don't see much in melt glass that would go with anything else. But that was actually my only purchase at the show. But it was an interesting show. Looking forward to the summer one too. So that's my show and tell today. But I did want to say, even though I'm a salt collector, this is from about 1940. So, not quite depressing glass, but almost. There we go.
Okay, I have a piece. I did find something.
Oh,
It's a Heisey 300 2 light. There are some of the crystals are missing, but and one of the Bobesh, one of the edges at the top here is chipped. But other than that, it's in really good shape. I was very surprised to find it, and especially at the price that I did. I'm not going to say how much I spent for it. I was very surprised to think that that's all they had on it. So much less than what it's really worth. But so I was pretty happy with that. So, and especially since at a mall that I really don't ever find things that are
So,
a good price.
so where are you going to display it? Do you
I
have
have
a
no
place
idea
for it?
yet.
Oh,
I don't know
okay.
yet. So I'll find a place, but yeah.
Okay,
So
beautiful.
anybody else? Okay.
Oh, I didn't think that was ever going to happen.
I can show you something.
Okay.
I'm mostly a collector of kitchenware, and I have some pattern of depression glass that I also collect for the last 30 years. And there's a pattern I always admired but never collected. It's the Moondrops by New Martinville.
Okay.
And I will show you what I acquired in the last 4 months.
Wow.
I went the way of the decanter. So I don't know if you can see them all. And I also have one of the cocktail shaker. So that it's my new collection.
Well, that's a very impressive new collection.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your new collection.
Thank you.
Have you joined the New Martinsville group on Facebook?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's a wealth of knowledge there in that group.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I am in contact with Chris Shoemaker.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the pieces I have found seems that it's pretty unusual because I found an amber decanter with an amber stopper.
Mm.
And it seems that it's pretty rare.
Yeah, I think most of the stoppers I've seen for New Martinsville are crystal, regardless of the stopper.
Yeah. So I started my collection with that piece. And then everything went the way of all the decanter, all the colors.
That way. Turn around.
It might be quicker the way it looks.
Anyone else?
maybe I'll just hate to take too much of the spotlight, but I kind of dug out these little for my birthday. Every year I started collecting these Izzy McGrady syrups.
Okay.
Yeah. So this year I'm going to get a green one if I can find a decent one. They come with these little sanitary handles. They were made from 1929 to 1948, I think. So they're called, I think 372. So, and then I'm becoming more interested in crystal glass. I didn't know if there's the crystal one that was a gift for the last birthday.
Okay. Well, if nobody else has anything,
Do we have anything lined up for April?
yeah, I haven't heard from anybody yet. We have somebody lined up for May, but he was unable to do April. So any of you would like to do something? I know that I know some of what some of you collect, so we're always looking
April
for,
5th would be the date, right? Saturday, April 5th, I think.
I think so. I don't know. I haven't looked. Yes, April 5th. April 5th. Same time, depending on where you are. So, all right, well, think about it, and Wesley and I will certainly, we may contact some of you to do something. So, or we'll try to get somebody else to do it. I'm glad that Dee's another board member of the association. I'm glad she was here. So maybe we can get one of them to do something as well. So there's Dee.
No way.
Where is it?
So,
Here. It's here.
all right. Well, like I said,
Took it on.
I really want to
Shouldn't
thank
be going
everybody for
through there.
tuning in. We certainly appreciate all of you taking time out. Like I said, I enjoy doing things like this. I think it's very fascinating to hear what everybody. Like I said, I see Diana. I
Trying to
recognize
shut
it,
the whole
and
Zoom thing off.
I didn't know that much about it, so it was nice to hear. So thank you again. So, all right, then I guess we will go ahead and let everybody sign off. And thank you again. It was nice
Thank you.
seeing some of you, some for the first time, some. All right.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
you
everyone.
very much. Good
Have a great day.
presentation.